Tonight, Trump kicks off his second week in office with a major international standoff and an immigration crackdown.
Sending a strong signal to the world our border's closed.
We break down what's next for the White House and Trump's cabinet picks. Plus, a shocking update on the hostages in Gaza.
I don't think words can express how we feel about this.
The latest on their condition and who will be freed next. And new evidence in California's deadly wildfires, what may have sparked the flames and why rain is creating a new disaster.
Slopes have become fragile. The soil that is supporting your home have all become fragile and damaged.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. President Trump's national emergency declaration at the southern border roiling international relations with some of our southern neighbors. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Jenna Browder. Nationwide crackdowns have kicked into high gear in President Trump's second week back in the White House. Deportation flights to South America are underway following a weekend feud with Colombia. Capitol Hill correspondent Michelle London joins us with the latest on border enforcement and how foreign leaders are responding. Michelle?
Well, Jenna, the main sticking point here appears to be the unexpected use of U.S. military aircraft in delivering expelled migrants. Today, however, at least 2 more U.S. deportation flights have landed in Guatemala, where its president says the relationship between the U.S. and Guatemala is, quote, still solid. Overnight, Colombian President Gustavo Petro's initial decision to block 2 flights prompted President Trump to threaten 25% tariffs on imports and sanctions on Colombian officials. Petro eventually agreed to accept the flights under one condition: the illegal U.S. immigrants could only travel on a civilian aircraft, emphasizing their right to dignity as non-criminals. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt claimed victory today, stating that the president expects all other nations of the world to fully cooperate in accepting the deportation of their citizens illegally present in the United States. Meanwhile, state leaders like Texas Governor Greg Abbott are moving further to secure the border. Today, he deployed the Texas Tactical Border Force, comprised of over 400 soldiers, to the southern border. In his first official day at the Pentagon, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told reporters Trump is hitting the ground running.
He's made it very clear there's an emergency at the southern border, that the protection of the sovereign territory of the United States is the job of the Defense Department, and the cartels are foreign terrorist organizations.
Meanwhile, officials from multiple agencies launched a joint operation in Chicago Sunday as immigration crackdowns now span from Atlanta to Los Angeles. Jenna?
Michelle, you mentioned Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who we just saw, had his first day today after being confirmed over the weekend. What's the latest on President Trump's other cabinet nominees?
Well, that's a great question. But first, Hegseth told reporters at the Pentagon today to expect more executive orders on a range of areas, including police support, removing DEI inside the Pentagon, and reinstating troops who were pushed out because of COVID mandates. Meanwhile, confirmation hearings continue later this week for RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, and Kash Patel. Jenna?
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. Michelle, thank you very much. And for more on all of this, let's bring in CBN News Chief Political Analyst David Brody. So, David, the New York Post out with this headline: new tariff in town. Colombia Prez, who blocked deportation flights, backs down after Trump's import tax threat. David, your thoughts on that and what we've seen so far from Trump 2.0?
Well, it is the power of Trump. There's no doubt about it. Remember, Jenna, he talks about tariffs being beautiful words, the most beautiful words he's ever heard. And a lot of people think, well, that's because of the revenue that they will bring in. And of course, that's part of it. But really, the bottom line of those tariffs has to do with the fact that he's a deal maker, the art of the deal. He doesn't really want to use the tariffs. That's the truth of the matter. He wants to use them as a negotiating ploy, a negotiating way to get folks to the table. And look what happened in Colombia. And quite frankly, I think next you're going to see, beyond Mexico, Canada, who am I missing? Mexico, Canada, and there's another one. Anyhow, I'll have to think about it in a second. China, hello. Those tariffs will go into effect February 1st on all 3 countries if they don't play ball. But already we're seeing Mexico and Canada, whether it be the northern border or the southern border, both countries, Mexico and Canada, are definitely doing some more activity to make sure illegal immigrants don't come into this country. So already the tariffs are working pretty well. And Greenland, by the way, would be next. Trump, may start to impose economic sanctions, in essence, on that relationship with Denmark, and because of that, that could help the United States potentially secure Greenland. We'll see. We're getting ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah, David, let's talk about the immigration crackdown. Yesterday alone, more than 1,000 criminal illegal immigrants were rounded up for deportation in cities across the country. The administration says it's just getting started. What do you make of this big push and effort?
Well, think about it, Jenna. It's remarkable. I mean, Kamala Harris, the border czar, never really went to the border. I think she went one time, the border czar. This time we have Tom Homan, the border czar, going on ride-alongs with Dr. Phil, by the way, which is kind of a strange situation.
I saw that, yeah.
Right? Imagine you're a legal immigrant criminal there and going, oh, there he is, Dr. Phil and Tom Homan. I mean, that was kind of strange. But the bottom line is you've got literally the border czar going on these ride-alongs. Look, they're talking about 1,500 now, potentially a day that they're going to round up. I mean, this is unprecedented. It's exactly what Donald Trump said he was going to do. He's doing it now. They've had 4 years to think about the battle plan of what they're going to do. And boy, Jenna, are they carrying this out to a T? Yeah,
and he has the experience, David. I think that's coming across. Also, the confidence. It seems like Donald Trump has more confidence now than he did, back in 2017 when he was sworn in for the first time. What are you keeping an eye on, David, this week? You know, it does feel like we're drinking from a fire hydrant. You and I both saw that meme on Twitter of I Love Lucy. You know, they were shoving the chocolate in their mouth on the surveyor belt. It feels like that's kind of where we are following the Trump administration. What are you watching for?
Yeah, we're all Lucille Ball and Ethel at this point. There's no doubt about that, Jenna. Look, the two main things, and Michelle London alluded to this earlier, the confirmation hearings coming up specifically with Kash Patel on Thursday, Tulsi Gabbard as well later this week. Those are the big ones, especially the Tulsi Gabbard one. That may be in trouble. I think Kash Patel, though, at the CIA, or excuse me, FBI, gets in. We'll see. Or already, by the way, speaking of things to watch for Kristi Noem, the Department of Homeland Security, to really be out in front of this immigration situation. We hear a lot about Tom Homan and Donald Trump. Watch for Kristi Noem to actually implement the policies. Remember, she got confirmed over the weekend as well.
Okay, David, always good to see you. Thank you, David.
You bet. Thanks, Jenna.
In other news, grief and joy across Israel tonight as the nation prepares to welcome home 6 more hostages. Meanwhile, Hamas has revealed the fate of several captives set for release.
I can confirm that Israel has received from the Hamas terrorist organization, a list that includes the status of all of the 33 hostages due to be released in this first stage. The list from Hamas matches Israel's intelligence. So I can share with you that 25 of our hostages are alive and 8 have been killed by Hamas.
And Hamas is set to release 3 more hostages on Thursday, including Arbel Yehud, a civilian who was supposed to be freed earlier. 3 more are expected on Saturday. So far, dozens have been released, but about 90 remain in captivity. Meanwhile, for the first time in more than a year, Israel is allowing hundreds of thousands of Palestinians to return to northern Gaza. The UN says more than 200,000 people have moved north under the fragile ceasefire. Tonight, the world is pausing to remember 80 years since the liberation of Auschwitz. Today, Holocaust survivors and world leaders gathered at the former death camp to honor the 1.1 million people the Nazis murdered there. One survivor issuing a chilling warning to a world grappling with a surge in anti-Semitism.
The rampant anti-Semitism that is spreading among the nations is shocking. It's shocking to all of us, to our children and our grandchildren.
And today's ceremony is expected to be the last large gathering of Auschwitz survivors as they age and pass away. All right, joining us now is Michael O'Hanlon, Senior Fellow and Director of Research and Foreign Policy at the Brookings Institution. Michael, welcome. Let's start with Israel and Gaza. What's the current status of the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas? And are you seeing any indications that it could either collapse or perhaps even be extended?
Well, it's shaky and it's early, as you know. It's still phase one of a three-phase concept where the third phase and beyond are extremely unclear because it's not at all likely right now that Israel would commit to any kind of a vision for a two-state outcome here, which of course is the core Palestinian demand. And so I think we're likely to see this nursed along in the short term, and I certainly hope so, but I don't really know what that means for the longer term. I wouldn't be surprised if there winds up being no political vision that the two sides can agree to, and Israel occasionally, therefore, reserves the right to itself to carry out operations against a Hamas that's trying to reform, even though most of its leaders from before are dead. So short-term prognosis, probably okay. Medium-term, much more questionable.
Yeah, Michael, what do you think of the two-state solution? What do you make of that?
I'm still for it. I really don't see any other way in which you give both peoples their rights. And also, Israel wants to be a democracy and a Jewish state. And to do both those things without denying Palestinians living within Israel's borders citizenship, you have a hard time with the demographics because the Palestinians, of course, are a large and growing population. So I think you're better. There are a lot of Palestinians who are going to live in Israel no matter where its borders are defined. And that's good because the two peoples often do get together and get along at the person-to-person level. But at the political level, I still think the Palestinians need some vision for their own country.
So over the weekend, President Trump suggested that surrounding Arab states like Jordan and Egypt should take in Palestinian refugees in an effort to clean out Gaza. Michael, what did you think of that?
My understanding is that's a complete non-starter with every single Arab country. And, you know, give President Trump credit, as your correspondent just was, for shaking up some debates. But sometimes debates are entrenched for a reason that just more rhetoric from the White House can't fundamentally change. And I've certainly seen the King of Jordan and others be extraordinarily passionate on this subject. They feel like Palestinians would be deprived of their innate human rights if they were forced to relocate. And also, most of these countries, especially countries like Jordan that are small to begin with, can't really absorb that kind of influx. So, you know, it's good to have some new ideas as long as President Trump's able to recognize that not all of them are going to fly, and this is probably not going to be successful.
So after 15 months of war, Hamas is effectively back in control of Gaza. In just about a minute we have left, Michael, do you have concerns that that Hamas could rebuild eventually to be even stronger?
Well, not to be even stronger necessarily, Jenna, but certainly to be a very serious concern. And of course, sometimes when you, obviously, Sinwar was horrible, but when you take out the top leadership, the younger leadership in an organization like this sometimes feels the need to prove its mettle by doing even more dramatic things, or at least comparably dramatic things. So I think we have to worry about Hamas reconstituting, which is, I think, therefore, an argument in favor of helping an alternative Palestinian entity get stronger, so it can not leave a vacuum that Hamas then occupies, because there's no other game in town.
All right, Michael O'Hanlon with the Brookings Institution. Great to have you on this evening. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And before we go to break, the battle for AI dominance is heating up. A Chinese startup has launched a powerful new AI assistant called DeepSeek, designed to rival ChatGPT. It quickly became the most popular free app in the Apple Store today, causing stocks to take a big hit. It's the latest move in the global tech race. The app is already raising questions about privacy and the Chinese government's involvement. Coming up, after weeks of devastating wildfires, the new threats endangering residents in Southern California. Welcome back. Firefighters in Southern California are getting some help after much needed rain over the weekend, but that's also bringing some new problems. The first significant rain in the area triggered floods and mudslides. This home that survived the Palisades fire was destroyed by a river of mud, and one woman's son and grandson had to fill sandbags to protect her home. However, the rain has helped put out those destructive fires, which are now more than 90% contained. Meanwhile, there are new clues into what could have started the massive Eaton fire, which killed 17 people. The Los Angeles Times reporting a lawsuit against the power company Southern California Edison, which claims the fire may have started at a transmission tower. The company says that it is fully cooperating with the investigation. Well, while the LA wildfires are about 90% contained, as we mentioned, firefighters are still battling the last flames. CBN Paul Petit reports from Los Angeles, where Operation Blessing is stepping in to help.
This has been the worst fire that I've ever experienced in my career, and also the worst fire in the history of Los Angeles County Fire Department.
Operation Blessing has been here for 2 weeks now, feeding families, delivering supplies, packing cleanup kits, and supporting firefighters.
There's just so much devastation all around that we are just trying to come alongside and help any way that we see possible.
That includes bringing in partners like Bel Air Church to take next steps in disaster relief. Drew Sams is the senior pastor.
People have lost schools, they've lost church buildings. I know of one church in the area, the sanctuary burned down, and over 50 homes in the congregation were lost.
This large parking lot across the street from Bel Air Church is often used by Hollywood film crews as a staging area when they're shooting movies here in the Santa Monica Mountains. But now it's going to be used by Operation Blessing as a citywide distribution center.
That's going to be our main kind of base of operations. And from there, we'll be doing distributions in these hard-hit areas.
Pastor Sam says he's seen a surge in church attendance since the wildfires began. He calls it revival through disaster.
Well, I've seen here that people who've come, let's say, just for Christmas or Easter are now coming every week.
Pastor Steve Wilburn, also an LA police chaplain, is seeing the same thing.
We're seeing people come into the church, and we're seeing hurting people. You know, it's been said in times past, you know, if you're going to speak to hurting people, you're never going to run out of people to speak to. But we're seeing people make commitments to Christ is what we're seeing.
Steve calls these wildfires the great leveler, pushing families of all backgrounds and statuses to the brink. Operation Blessing plans to be here to help them as long as it takes. In Los Angeles, Paul Petit, CBN News.
Next, why President Trump wants control of one of the world's most important trade routes. We take you to the Panama Canal when Faith Nation returns. Welcome back. Secretary of State Marco Rubio will travel to Panama as part of his first international trip. President Trump has made the Panama Canal a key issue for the U.S., raising concerns about China's growing influence in the region. CBN's Chuck Holton brings us a closer look from Panama.
In his inaugural address, President Trump accused Panama of not honoring its agreements with America.
And Panama's promise to us has been broken. The purpose of our deal and the spirit of our treaty has been totally violated. American ships are being severely overcharged and not treated fairly in any way, shape, or form, and that includes the United States Navy. And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China. We gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back.
If you wonder how China is trying to gain influence over Panama, you just have to look no further than this construction right here that's going out into the Panama Canal there behind me. That's the Port of Balboa over there, and you can see these ships coming out of the canal. But this construction is one of two bridges that China has agreed to build over the canal, with investing more than $1.3 billion in Panama as part of their Belt and Road Initiative. And this is all part of a plan by China to increase its presence around the globe. And that's one of the concerns of the Trump administration. Panama's current president, Jose Raul Mulino, is pushing back.
The Panama Canal belongs to Panama and will remain Panama's. The Panama Canal was not a concession or a gift from the United States. The Panama Canal emerged in 1914, following a bilateral treaty in 1903 at the dawn of our independence from Colombia.
Panama has invested heavily to keep the canal efficient and competitive. For that reason, if the U.S. were to take it back, it would get a completely different canal than the one turned over in 1999.
Panama has invested billions of dollars expanding the canal. They dredged the entire channel from the Atlantic to the Pacific to accommodate much bigger vessels. They've widened the Culebra Cut. They've put their own 2 sets of locks on the Atlantic and Pacific sides with chambers that are 180 feet wide. So Panama has some serious skin in the game.
This site where I'm standing was actually built by the Chinese. As a matter of fact, they have a large monument they built here to 150 years of China in Panama. Nobody's making the case that there are no Chinese or no Chinese influence in Panama. The real question is, how much influence does China have over the Panama Canal? I don't think he's going to tell us. The Canal Administration insists it operates under strict rules of neutrality.
El Tratado de Neutralidad dice, everyone goes through equally under the same rules. Once an exception process is open in the assignment procedures of transit and operations of the Panama Canal, a Pandora's box is open and you don't know where it ends. So the most sensible, prudent, and efficient way to do this is to maintain the rules.
Trump's comments have sparked anger in Panama, a longtime U.S. ally.
Panama is very pro-American, very American-friendly. For Trump to just come out with these statements is highly insulting to Panama. If Trump is trying to thwart the Chinese influence that is creeping into this country, it's not the right way to diplomatically do it by just bashing and attacking Panama.
From Panama, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Still ahead, a race to the record books. Next on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, a small dog named Jelly Bean is well on her way to earning a world record. It started in 2020 when Andrew Owens adopted Jelly Bean from a shelter in the Sacramento area. He realized Jelly Bean had endless energy, so they started running races together, including 2 ultra and 6 regular marathons. At just 9 pounds, Jelly Bean is fast, running her last marathon in under 4 hours. Andrew says the only thing as impressive as her speed is Jelly Bean's appetite. Good for them. All right, that's going to do it for Faith Nation. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here tomorrow.